Hello, my name is Abigail Reyes. I'm a major in education, and this is my junior year in Cedar Crest. I decided to do my project based on representation of Hispanics in media. And the first question that I would like to ask all of you is there representation at all? This slide briefly explains that the population of the Hispanic community is 62.1 million of the US population. And media is something that reaches different people all over the world. So, why do we not see as much representation as we should? So, let's take a look throughout all the years as to where there was positive representation and negative representation. So, let's first look at the 1960s. The 1960s was a time where there was a lot of protesting in many different groups of the Hispanic community. For example, there was the Chicana civil rights movement, which led to a lot more roles in media. But regardless, we were stuck to a representation of basically they always used us as the secondary roles or the criminals, or they always see us as seductive or pure. It's either one exaggeration of pure or an exaggeration of seduction. But the image shown here is Susan Connor, who won an Emmy Award for The Imitation of Life, being the first Chicana woman to win an Emmy Award. The next year we would like to look at is the 1970s. I decided to look at a different form of media for this era, and the media that I was looking at for this one was music. And music in this era was pretty standard. There was only Jenny Rivera, there was Selena, but nobody really acknowledged that there wasn't just those two women that did it. There was also Jose, who was a really popular musician who popularized a lot of pop music and was pretty much an icon during his time. The next year is the 1980s. The 1980s was where there was a lot more representation, but I can't say if it's positive. There was a representation in animation that I feel like was pretty prevalent. And even I remember when I watched this movie when I was pretty young, but not in this year. I watched Oliver and Company, and Oliver and Company has a chihuahua who is fierce, impulsive, and has a very exaggerated accent, and he's also a kleptomaniac. So the representation in this movie isn't that positive. Now the next year is the 1990s. So this one I would like to look at movies that show a lot of representation. For example, Selena in 1997 was a good representation of a Hispanic woman, especially since it was a biography, so they had to make sure they had all the information and facts correctly done. And Selena in this movie is shown as a hardworking and very strong. She's pretty um honest, and she wanted to get things the way that she can, but in a way that didn't do it in a very demanding type of way. Another negative representation for movies is The Mask of Zorro that was in 1998. It is shown that he is a Hispanic man, but is very hyper masculine, hyper sexualized, and in general, just showing that men have to be a certain type of way to be able to be seen as a man. The next era is the 2000s. I wanted to look at another form of media, which is the news. And I would like to take this moment to really acknowledge the news format for what it is. And we have, as a Hispanic community, we always relied on Univision to translate our different type of news broadcasts and really help us understand what's going on in the world and community without belittling anybody or just getting our voices spoken. And also, I've noticed that for this type of situation too, this channel has allowed different novelas, different types of media to be shown. And it's pretty cool because of the fact that we don't have to limit ourselves because an American channel doesn't want to show a movie. We have Univision to show different types of movies, television shows, sitcoms that normally an American channel wouldn't want to show. The next year is the 2010s. This year specifically is known as the golden age of cartoons because I feel like this is where more representation for all different type of minority groups are shown. There is one prevalent spin-off show that came from an American show, but they decided to focus on another type of family, and the spin-off is called the Casa Grandes. The Casa Grandes is based on, which is the image on the left, and it's about a family that shows different type of dynamics. They're Hispanic, and they showed all the how they interact with each other, and just in general a different type of representation, but it's positive. It's not showing stereotypes. It shows that they're still human just because they have these family dynamics, and it's amazing to see. The other image on the right is a sitcom that was first on Netflix and then made its way to YouTube TV, and it's called One Day at a Time. It's about a Cuban family, Cuban American, and in general this show shows a lot of representation, shows for Hispanics, LGBT, and it even shows children that struggle with the identity of it, either they're American or they're part of their Hispanic community, but regardless, it shows the pride that they have. Now we'll take a look at 2020 and the future that leads to representation for the Hispanic community. 2021 compared to the past years has been a lot more progressive. There's been more animation with Hispanic characters that don't show negative stereotypes. There's also um, different movies. We have more prevalent roles. We're the main characters now. And there's also Hispanics that we don't really see in media. Like, for example, The Owl House is a prevalent children's TV show that has a Dominican American, which I can proudly say that I am also Dominican American. But then again, we are taking a few steps back because of the fact that we're only looking at the outside point of view of Hispanic representation. Hispanics are come in varies of different type of appearances, and there's a movie that came out recently called In the Heights that ignored Afro Latinos, and they didn't have the prevalent roles, and they acknowledged it as a way that, oh, you know, we are going to do this movie, it's going to be awesome, they're going to have all this representation, but in a way they still showed colorism because they didn't have a variety of different Afro Latinos. So these are my references. And overall, thank you for listening to my presentation. And I hope this helps you decide what kind of media you want to look into. Thank you. Have a great day. And enjoy Media Literacy Week.